Welcome back to No Trade Clause. We are live from the SBC studio here at the 2021 Las Vegas Summer League. We're continuing to cover some off-season breakdowns in addition to bringing in some speakers, chop it up with them. Today we have Derek Murray joined with us in studio. Derek Murray is an NBA draft analyst and currently a director of basketball ops with Sports Info Solutions. Derek, thanks for taking the time with us today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be back at Summer League after missing last year. Just happy to be back in the gym.
Yeah, how have things been since the crazy 2021 NBA draft? You get a chance to wind down at all?
I did. I took a couple days. I thought I'd get a break immediately after, but I always forget that, the radio interviews, the podcasts, the TV interviews will come right after for reactions and kind of initial thoughts, winners and losers and all that stuff. So I probably got 2 or 3 hard days of work, and then I took a couple off. My wife finally said, hey, it's time to put the phone down for a little bit, so I tried to do that for a little while.
Yeah, everyone always wants to hear how the draft was after the fact. Yep. There's so much prep going into the draft, and then after the draft, it's just like, okay, well, what actually happened? What went down?
Yep.
So I imagine it was a lot.
Yep.
Well, we're going to get going right away. We're just going to throw you right into the fire here. So I'm going to just start off with some 4 quick-hitting questions. I just want you to give me some one-word answers, and then we'll kind of just take the conversation from there based on what we go with. So first, who's a player you thought should have been drafted higher this year?
I thought B.J. Boston went considerably lower than he probably should have. I probably would have taken a shot on him in the 30s. I understand he had a really rough year at Kentucky. I'm a little slower to blame him for a lot of that than maybe some others in the media or other teams. They all had their reasons for maybe why he slipped. But again, it was a rough year at Kentucky. It was a rough year in Lexington. And I just think if you watch his pre-college film, if you watch his high school tape, there was too much there to bet on. There's a reason that he was projected a top 10 pick coming into the year. And I don't think that those reasons were gone just because of a bad season. So I thought he fell. I didn't remember exactly what number it was, but I wouldn't have let him fall past probably 39 to me.
For sure. Ali, is there a player you have in mind?
Quick hitting, probably Sharif Cooper.
Yeah.
He was James Johnson as well. I was a bit shocked, but Sharif was the one. I mean, he's so dynamic, and I feel like with this draft we saw an influx of really dynamic ball handlers and playmakers. And considering where the league is going, I think front offices are really, these last couple of years have trended towards finding those types of guys, and you're seeing a lot of, we're seeing where big guys are going in the draft and how less valuable they're becoming.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I'll say we talked about him actually right before we started shooting. But Trey Murphy went fairly high. But I think he could have gone higher had certain teams been in the right situation. Let's say if New Orleans didn't even make that trade, they could have still eyed him at 10 anyways, and I wouldn't have been entirely surprised. And you've seen him at Summer League so far. He's had some great outings here. So he's a player who I think should have been considered for some higher spots.
Yep.
Next question, who's on the flip side, player you think was drafted too high?
Yeah, I had 2 come to mind. Not necessarily that they weren't good enough to be drafted where they were, but at the times of those picks, I looked at the board and thought, there may have been some other options that I would have looked at. I thought Jokubaitis to the Knicks at low 30s. To your point, Sharif Cooper was still on the board. Yeah. We'd heard lots of talk that Sharif Cooper was not going to be a first-round pick, so I thought, okay, there's no way he falls 35, 40. There's no chance. So seeing Jokubaitis come off the board with Jared Butler and Sharif Cooper on was a little interesting to me. I understand what the Knicks see in him. He's a young guy who's played professional basketball and has the experience. But he was one, and then the other, he's a very Memphis guy, but trading up to 30 to get Aldama, I won't say confused me. I just feel like they could have gotten him a little later. We did hear a little bit before that they traded up to get him because word was he was not going to get past 34 and 36. So I think that they had, word is that he had a promise. I thought it was either Memphis or Oklahoma City. I thought it was in the 40s or 50s. But then once the rumblings came out of like, hey, he's not going to make it out of the 30s, they had to go up and get their guy. So when there is a guy that you want, you have to go get him.
Right.
But 30, I thought, whoa, that's just considerably higher than I thought we would hear his name.
The problem with that is now he's on guaranteed salary.
Right.
So there's
which is why they do it. Now they've got the control. It's like, hey, we promised we were going to take him later.
Yeah.
For Memphis, that's a home run.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see 3-0 next to Santi Aldama's name afterward.
Sure. Yeah, I spent some time at American University working on that staff, and so I saw Santi play a lot, and he dominated the Patriot League. It was, a lot of people question like, oh, the league, the strength of schedule, things like that. But at the end of the day, the numbers that he was putting up and the caliber of play, like, he could have been doing very similar things in major conferences in college basketball.
And he picked up right where he left off when he was playing for Spain. I mean,
Yeah.
at U16s, he just dominated people. 2018 and 19, I believe. Like, it just wasn't even close. He was so much better than all of his peers, his age competition. So that's why it makes sense. If Memphis thinks, okay, that's the Aldama we can get out of him, then it makes total sense.
Right.
For sure. Ali, is there a player you have in mind?
Man, a player drafted too high. I would probably say I think Kuminga. I was pretty unsure about Kuminga. Like, I saw flashes of him in G League, and I just was like, I didn't feel like he was consistent enough to go that high, but I just felt like teams just fell in love with his like raw talent and ability and his build and his strength, that he'll figure the rest out. And then he also had some red flags as well, but he's the one that comes to mind at first for sure.
Definitely. My pick, what I would have to say, would be Ayo. I feel like his game might not translate as well. He was a very ball dominant player in Illinois. And he might struggle to get to some of those spots that he was able to get to while he was at Illinois. Being able to do the same things in Chicago, I think he'll struggle getting those opportunities at first. Hope he figures it out, but I think there were some more NBA ready type talent that was available at the time. But I hope he proves me wrong. And then next, team that had the best draft night, looking at their overall draft, the moves they made, and it also could have been a team that was very quiet, addressed one need, filled one hole, and went about their business. What do you guys think?
I've got two that really stood out that I thought were home runs, Charlotte and Houston. Charlotte, again, being in the gym with James Bouknight, I thought 10 he was a steal, or 11, I'm sorry. I thought 11 he was a steal. Did not see him falling out of the top 10. Just a walking bucket, and he can just get whatever shot and get to the rim whenever he wants to. And then they got Kai Jones and JT Thor, probably the two best long, rangy, rim-running bigs with shooting like potential and upside. They got them both.
I agree.
I just think that's a home run. And then Houston, obviously Jalen Green at 2. We had Garuba mocked to them for a while, so that fit made total sense at 23. I thought they were going to go Jaden Springer at 24, and they took Josh Christopher. Learned afterward, Christopher and Green's relationships since, kids played a huge part in that, and I think that's important, the cohesion. And then trading up for Şengün.
Yeah.
That'll be one where I think it'll be a while before we find out how, quote, good we want to say that pick was moving up. I think the Thunder did a good job by trading out of that because there's nobody on the board at that time that they were really infatuated with. But, if Şengün turns into, 75 or 80% of the kind of player that, John Hollinger thinks he can be. Hollinger thinks he's amazing.
Yeah, he's high on him.
Again, his vision is so good. I'm excited to see him play again tonight. But, again, if you come out of here with Green, Şengün, who becomes what we think he can, and then Garuba, who's NBA ready right now, and Christopher, who has scoring upside as much as anybody in this class, that's a grand slam. That's a tremendous draft.
Absolutely, yeah. I agree with the Rockets were another pick. I thought Orlando had a pretty good draft as well. They're going to be a really fascinating League Pass team because they have so many draft tickets that they can kind of go in different directions. And Suggs, I feel like, can play so many different roles. He could play on ball, he could play off ball, so he can fit in so many different lineups. But the Rockets obviously had an incredible draft in terms of just accumulating pure talent, and I think where they are currently, that's exactly what they need to be doing. I do want to ask you a question. In terms of fit, like one of the most important things that I've kind of noticed is, when you have a player and a team, a fit goes two ways. In terms of just fit purely, who do you think had the best draft where that combination of team, system, offense, defense, and player skill set really just makes sense?
Yeah, so I think Barnes at 4, even though it seemed like a shock to some people. Again, that's something that we heard was going to happen a couple days up before the draft. That didn't surprise us at all. Even in some of our mocks, we had Barnes at 4. I think he fits team-wise because they love length and versatility.
Absolutely.
Their development system is set up to get the most out of that type of player. So not even so much, hey, our rotational, like our lineup construction needed X, Scotty Barnes fits X. I think he's just built for what they are good at developing.
I mean, look at their track record, right? Yuta
Right.
Watanabe, Chris Boucher, Pascal, who has really developed, grown into his own through that system. So he
OG.
definitely fits the
absolutely.
bill.
Yeah, Fred.
And then, speaking earlier, New Orleans, they had 10. We really thought they were going to say Kispert if they kept it. It was kind of a Kispert or Moody discussion is what was going on in that front office as far as everything I know. When traded back, I really thought, I was like, oh, man, there you might not get Kispert or Trey Murphy because Duarte will not be there.
Right.
And then Washington was linked to a lot of the shooters as well because they knew that trade was coming up, a couple of days before the draft and whatnot. But I think Murphy fits them like a glove. He's not going to get inside and get in Zion's way. Jackson Hayes is still going to be able to do his thing. And then Murphy isn't a great on-ball creator. He doesn't have to be. Like, he is going to be able to star in his role at what he excels at, and it fits like a glove. And we saw it yesterday, 26 points. I think it was 6 and 9 from 3.
Yeah.
He gives them the spacing that they need, and it's perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really liked, all the teams that we've mentioned so far have had exceptional drafts. Another team that might be flying under the radar, though I really like what they did is New York. I really like that the pieces they brought in. It seems like they brought in a bunch of ready guys, like a bunch of guys who can find their way into the rotation pretty quickly. Like Quentin Grimes, I think, was an awesome pick. We saw his stock rise significantly through the pre-draft process. He killed it at the combine. Was labeled as one of the better 3-and-D guys in the draft. So, paired with Deuce McBride. I'm really looking forward to see how those young guys find their way in the New York system, and they're clearly going through a renaissance. So it's an awesome opportunity to build something great there.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I mean, I think the Knicks Fan TV show the day after the draft. It was like, all right, tell us what we got here. So after Kispert, Duarte, and Trey Murphy came off the board, which are probably the guys that I would be comfortable giving the 3-and-D title to. Kispert, maybe not so much the D, but obviously was a shooter, so you knew what you were getting. Quentin Grimes and Deuce McBride were kind of the next two guys. Good defenders on ball. In our Sports Info Solutions data, they were both 95th percentile in this draft class as pull-up shooters, three-point shooters, and on-ball defenders.
Oh, wow.
And the Knicks clearly had a type going into this draft.
Absolutely.
So when they got both of those guys, okay, they were looking for certain things, and they got them.
Yeah.
And Tibbs is going to be able to play both those guys. They're both pretty durable, so that's going to fit like a glove. I think Knicks is a great call there.
Right.
Yeah, and last question: who is we could say undrafted or who went very late in the draft player to watch? Someone who's playing in summer league right now, getting minutes. That's looking to solidify their spot in training camp or on a roster.
Yeah. So, Ayayi for the Lakers is one undrafted that I think has a shot to kind of make a team. Again, versatile, experience, came out after a couple years at Gonzaga. I thought he had a really good shot at getting drafted. I'm not necessarily sure if it was anything negative about him, but just team needs, especially at the back. Some guys took bigs. I think that's kind of why he fell out. I'm excited to see what he looks like for the Lakers. Another guy, I really want to see what Petrushev looks like for the Sixers. I know he played yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever it was. Watched a little bit of that game. He just improved so much from Gonzaga going to Mega. As a shooter, as an overall scorer, he just developed really, really well. And he might be able to be a kid who can come over and give you points right now. Maybe he's a guy that goes back overseas, especially with the Sixers adding Drummond.
Yeah.
At that point, maybe you can play Petrushev as the 4 because he can shoot it more now. So I'm curious to see just what his scoring translates to over here, because at Mega he improves so much.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Ali, what stands out to you? Any players you have in mind?
Undrafted players?
Undrafted or who just went late, someone who you feel like is flying under the radar right now, who's playing in these games. Do you think, they need more buzz than what they're actually getting?
Honestly, from what I've seen from Matt McClung, I've been impressed. Like he has some dynamism, like on ball, off ball. Like I liked what I saw from him defensively. He's 6'2". Like I'm not really sure. He's more of like a combo guard. He's not going to be able to defend up a position really. But I feel like his motor and his energy and he has a certain like electricity about him that I like. And from what I saw watching the Lakers play, they feed off of his energy, and I feel like that locker room, I don't know if he makes the team or not, but he's gonna find a way.
Yeah.
And I liked what I saw from him so far.
So we've talked about 2 Lakers, i.e. McClung. I'm actually going to bring up a third one, Austin Reeves.
Yep.
Yeah, he's nice.
I was intrigued by
nice.
him going through the pre-draft process. He looked good, at the combine and things, but I was a little skeptical about how he would fare against NBA competition, how he would fare against NBA defenders, and I watched his first game out here, and I was amazed. Like, I really liked watching him play. He was making some awesome plays, passing, and he had some late game heroics as well. So, not much more you can ask for out of a prospect who went late in the draft, making the right decisions here at Summer League.
Yeah, living in Oklahoma City, I've gotten to see a lot of Austin Reeves up close playing down for the Sooners in Norman. And my big question was, okay, but if you have an NBA 2 guarding him, a 6'6" or 7" long NBA 2, does he still get his shots off?
Right.
I think that's still my question on a true NBA floor.
Yeah.
But again, the shot making has clearly, it's still with him. He played well the other night. So I think if even athletically he can hang a little bit, he'll be able to get a shot up and make most of them.
All right, so we're going to transition a little bit. We've talked about the draft. Now we're going to more so focus on Derek's position here as a scout, some of his experience, and we kind of want to see what gets him going and how he's got to the point in his career now. So I guess we'll start with some of your most recent work with your 2021 draft board. I can't remember. I wish I could credit this person. I saw a graphic on Twitter highlighting the most accurate draft boards. They found some metric, who struck well within specific ranges, and Basketball News rated among the highest. So talk a little bit about your process. What are some differentiating factors as you go through your scouting calendar as to get the accurate results that you do? And I get it if you don't want to talk about certain things. You've got a secret formula that's clearly working, so you don't need to let that one fly.
Yeah, I think what Matt and I do is special because we work on different levels. So we work together, but on different levels. Again, Matt Babcock's was an agent for many years. Grew up around basketball. 2 uncles were general managers. His dad works for the Bucks right now. Just grew up in basketball, and he knows a lot of people. So he's able to get intel from a lot of teams and front offices, from GMs, assistant GMs, high-level executives, agents from not even around the country but around the world. And then through kind of my path in basketball, getting to know a lot of guys just like me who through the years have kind of grown together in our respective roles. I know a lot of the lower level guys in teams. I know the G League Dobos. I know the G League GMs. I know the scouting coordinators and scouting assistants and a lot of the guys who cover high school basketball now. So we're able to talk to everybody on all levels in these teams. I think what really helps us, at least in this particular draft, get things right is that we try not to take a reporting approach. A lot of our information we get from people, it doesn't leave us. We're not going to write a piece of, hey, I put this kid in a mock draft here because this team's GM told us that they like him. That's a quick way to lose trust and have trust lost in you, and we're just not going to do that. We partner with different people all over the world, from teams to scouts to agents, gathering and helping sharing intel and scouting for them. So just a lot of relationships. It's very important for us to keep those. You need to be in good graces with everybody you work with. You need to be trustworthy, just like you would hope that you can trust others. And I think that's what sets us apart is Matt's reputation in basketball and relationships are legit and they're real and they're good. And I'm going to give, that's credit to him. I just sometimes am the beneficiary of that, but it's because of the groundwork he's laid for 20 years. But I think that's kind of how we were able to set ourselves apart this time is our relationships are pretty solid.
Awesome. Yeah.
I love it.
So, you've talked about your process, but, clearly you had to start somewhere. Matt had to start somewhere. Everyone has to start on a ground level. And we have a lot of our audience are, people whether they're in college or they're pretty young trying to break into the basketball world. So this question's kind of meant for them. This is what question we'll wrap up with. So basketball scouting, it's a difficult and it's an expensive. I don't think people realize how expensive scouting is to get into, between travel expenses. You're paying for stat services, you're paying for film services, like that adds up, monthly subscriptions, and you don't necessarily even have the network to get you into a gym with these prospects. In-person evaluation is obviously so important, but you need to be able to know someone to get you into that gym. So, and those are some things that a lot of young people don't have access to. There's a lot of hurdles, a lot of things going against them to break in. What advice do you have for a young scout who has limited resources, has limited access to a gym, to prospects? How would you suggest they go about breaking in?
Yeah. So I apologize if this is a long-winded answer, because my path is interesting, and I want to be able to help people as much as I can.
Yeah.
Man, it's twofold. Thing number one, you have to play the long game, and you have to know you're playing the long game. Getting into basketball, it does not happen quickly. You're going to meet people in 1 year that it may not come into fruition what you're hoping for 5 years. And I think that's just important to know. People who expect, I'm going to start right now, and in 6 months I'm going to be where I want to be in. That's a path for letdown and a lot of kind of emotional hurt, honestly. I met Sam Presti when I moved to Oklahoma City in 2016. Kind of said, hey, I want to do your job. I don't know where to start. If you point me in the right direction, I won't bother you again. Just if you tell me where to start. And he said, hey, start here. Start with these books, start with these events, meet these people. But it's all about the people. You do have to have your basketball knowledge, but I got to where I am because people have helped me and lent a hand. So going to Summer League, going to Portsmouth Invitational, those are the two things that I focused on early. And just shake as many hands as you can. It is okay to get rejected and people don't want to talk to you. I mean, I've had people, I'll say it on camera now, it's been long enough. I've had people MF me to my face, get out of my way, don't talk to me again, blow me off. That's fine. Like, you can have 9 people say that to me, great. The one who takes time to get to know me, well worth the trip. So just being able to put up with a lot of walls going up against you, people being guarded because they think you may be gunning for their job, when that's not the case. You're just trying to meet them, but they don't know that. Yeah. It's really tough. It's as much an emotional battle as it is, physical or financial. I say one thing, again, the travel does get expensive. I took money for my full-time job. I saved some on the side so that I could travel. A lot of teams that I was meeting with were saying, where did your company put you up in this hotel? I was like, oh, no, I'm in that $30 a night hotel over there because that's all I can pay for. And what's crazy is I had some director of scouting and VPs of teams at Portsmouth in 2018 tell me, or ask me to wait, you're staying way up there and you're using a buddy's car who lives here because you just want to be here that bad. I said, yeah, so I just want to be here. And they open up their doors to me. If you're willing to do that, we'll help you. So not only do you have to play the long game, you have to be able to convince people you'll do whatever it takes to be successful. And, there are lines, like, don't let your priorities get out of line. If you're married or have kids, at a young age, they are number one. Do not fall into a trap to where that gets pushed to the wayside. That's unhealthy. But convincing people that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. There's nothing you can tell me to do that I won't turn around and go do to do this. That's what kind of helped set me apart, at least pretty early. But again, I started this journey in 2016. I'm not nowhere near where I want to be. Love my role at Sports Info Solutions very much. There's stuff in the analytical world that I never thought I'd be a part of. They're teaching me how to watch basketball in a new light every day, and learning from Matt as well. Again, just people who have reached out and helped me. So that's long-winded, but it's hard. If people tell you it's easy, like, they're lying to you. Yeah. So you just have to know that.
Yeah, and I love that you have your hat in a lot of different places, a lot of different realms within basketball, whether it be a writer, a scout, in the analytics world. And, the more you stretch yourself into those aspects, the more opportunities that will come. So, it's...
And that's a great point. I was early on when I first started kind of connecting with Sam and learning, I wanted to learn the analytics of coaching, the analytics of scouting. I wanted to know the scouting. I wanted to know the coaching side. I learned the G League. I learned the NBA. I learned a little bit of everything. There did come a point, though, where you have to pick what you want to do. And that's what I try to ask a lot of young people, who especially I meet out here is, what do you want to do in 10 years? My favorite question, in 10 years, you're doing your dream job. What are you doing? Find a way to get to that. Stan Johnson, who used to be an assistant coach at Marquette, I called him one time. I was looking at college GA jobs, 2017-18, because I thought that would be my path into basketball. maybe I need to go be a GA. And he was like, dude, if you want to be in the front office, like, start right now. You've gone 2 years. Really, it's time to focus, time to hone in on, all right, there's my door. How do I go knock that down? So it is important early to learn everything, to find out what you love. But then once you know what you love, then you've got to go for it and really focus your energy on that.
Yeah.
100%.
And luck is such an important factor too. And one thing that, like, obviously, it takes hard work to get there, but luck, I feel like, and you mentioned it too, I feel like a lot of people who get into this business don't mention that because it's such an important factor, because you don't know where life takes you. So.
Yeah. And yeah, the Lord's blessed me with a lot of relationships that on paper I don't deserve, that I haven't earned, know. And so when those relationships come, you have to recognize them when they're in front of you.
For sure.
That's also very important now that it's like hitting me. When there's a window of opportunity in front of you, even if it's not a job, whether it's a 15-minute conversation with somebody, chase them down in the parking lot. You will probably never be within 30 feet of that executive ever again. Recognize that window and go.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for our broadcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to the conversation. We hope you enjoyed, everything we had going on here, our draft coverage, and look out for some more draft coverage in the future from No Trade Clause. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, Derek, and hope to chop it up again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.